Welcome back, and let's welcome in our panel of political and media experts, State Representative Brenda Gilmore and News 2 political analyst Steve Gill. Thank you guys both so much for being here.
Thanks. It's great being here.
Already, we're talking 2010, the next governor of Tennessee. The fundraising numbers have come out. Steve, what do you make of this?
Well, we'll see the actual numbers in about a week or so when they've got to reveal the details of how much they raised from individuals and kind of break down the numbers, and we'll actually learn a lot more about it. But on the Republican side, a huge fundraising number reported by Bill Haslam, the mayor of Knoxville, as expected, about $3.8 million. We also saw about $1.3 million raised by Zach Wamp, the congressman from Chattanooga. I think what surprised a lot of folks was that Lieutenant Governor Ramsey raised $1.3 million and was only able to start his fundraising effort June 1st under the laws of the state of Tennessee, and in just a 4-week period, really 2 weeks after the session ended, was able to pull in $1.3 million as well. Bill Gibbons, the district attorney in Memphis, raised about $400,000, which leaves him, I think, way out of the mainstream in terms of the ability to compete. The challenge going ahead is, I mean, it may sound bizarre, but this was the low-hanging fruit. This is the easy money, and at the amount of money that they've already raised, it's still a lot of money raised, but going ahead, it's going to be a very expensive race. On the Democratic side of the aisle, you've got both Roy Herron and Jim Kyle, who are state senators. They're going to be faced next year with the same challenge that Ron Ramsey has of not being able to raise money during the session. They've got to raise a lot of money this year if they're going to compete. Kim McMillan, a former legislator who was one of Brenda's colleagues, also in the race, and then you've got former Governor Ned McWhirter's son Mike, who's looking at running, and Ward Kamek, a businessman. They didn't really report their numbers yet. They've still got a few more weeks till those numbers will come out. But it's going to be an expensive race across the board.
Sounds like it.
I think the amount that's going to require for these candidates to run for governor is going to be almost sinful in the amount that it will be spent. It will be interesting to see what the legislature does next year. Of course, there was some controversy about some legislation that was pending. It ended up being a tie and it was not able to be moved forward to allow Lieutenant Governor Ramsey to fundraise during session, and of course that's going to hamper him some. I was impressed that he was able to raise as much as he was this year, which will of course benefit him next year when he will not be able to raise, unless of course we still have a second term that legislation is able to move forward where he could fundraise.
The good news for Middle Tennessee is a lot of that money is going to be spent right here because the collar counties, particularly in the Republican primary of Williamson, Wilson, Rutherford, and Sumner, that's where that primary is going to be determined. So all these millions of dollars likely are going to flow right here to Channel 2.
Right. Good news for us.
The other thing too is most of the representatives will be running for office, so people will be giving to other candidates. So I suspect that there probably will not be as much donated next year as it was this year.
Let's talk about guns in parks. The lawmakers passed the bill banning guns to be in parks. Lots of cities now are talking about overriding it, Murfreesboro being one of them. You said during the commercial break there's just not a lot of support out there for it. So how did it pass?
Yeah, I think this legislature just misread what the citizens in Tennessee actually wanted regarding guns. What I've found and what I hear is that most people just do not want guns in parks. I understand that all of the cities in state of Tennessee have already, either they're considering or they have already opted out of guns in parks. Even in Murfreesboro, the vote was 1-6 in terms of opting out. So that's a strong support for not wanting guns in park. We see Little League parents sometimes get in arguments and it goes too far, it ends up in a confrontation. So I think it's on most people's mind that if we allow guns in parks, that there may be some kind of killings.
Well, the idea that we're allowing law-abiding citizens to protect themselves after they go through a rigorous background check, after they go through training, is not what people are really concerned about. What we're seeing is that non-law-abiding citizens are out there killing people in parks, in home invasions, as we saw tragically in Nashville this week. We don't have a guns at high school graduations bill that's in place, and yet we saw a shooting, a murder at one of the high school graduations in Nashville a few weeks ago. The real question here is, should law-abiding citizens who've been through a background check have the ability to defend themselves and others? And I think most Tennesseans, and certainly most of the legislature, approves of that.
I think what we got to find is balance. Just this week, even involving the tragic death of Steve McNair, we saw a young lady that was able to purchase a gun from an individual in the parking lot of a mall. So I do think that we have to find balance. We do not want to trample on the rights of individuals to purchase guns or to own guns, but at the same time, we can't infringe on the rights of those people who just want to be out having fun and recreation without some fear that Steve may be packing while he's sitting by me.
Well, my packing is not what she should be fearful of. What she should be fearful of is the guy who is illegally coming into that park with a gun, who's trying to rob her, and me packing may be able to save you from being murdered, which is what the real law is all about. And again, keep in mind that this young lady who murdered Steve McNair committed a crime when she killed him. We've got laws on the books preventing people from murdering Brenda or anybody else. People break the law. What we should have is that law-abiding citizens should be trained to protect themselves and their families, because it's clear the police can't always do the job.
In this case, though, I think the laws were not far-reaching enough to prevent a 20-year-old from purchasing a gun.
Except it was illegal for her to buy the gun. Just as it was illegal for her to murder Steve McNair. She broke the law by buying the gun illegally and broke the law by murdering him. We got laws on the books. We're going to have some people breaking the law.
Exactly.
News 2 political analyst Steve Gill, Representative Brenda Gilmore. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And when we come back, what will Sarah Palin do next? Our Voice of the Week has a unique perspective on this story.